Greetings and salutations, everybody. I'm Andrew from Team Respawn, and I wanted to make a video talking about the genre of the RTS games as a whole. I made a video probably a couple of years ago now talking about where are all the RTS games on the PS4 and the Xbox One, and back then I was criticizing both of these platforms for not really supporting or welcoming RTS games, and granted, it's not Xbox or PlayStation's fault. It's just that developers are not making games for those platforms. Ever since we've seen the decline and really just the destruction of the Command & Conquer franchise, we haven't seen a whole heck of a lot of new and exciting RTS games to either platform, with the exception of Halo Wars 2. So part of me wants to think that this entire genre is not necessarily dead, but it's very, very small, and it's a fraction of what it used to be. I feel like in the late 90s, early 2000s was when this genre was really at its peak. This is when we saw games really hitting its strides in different series such as Age of Empires, Command & Conquer. I mean, you even had the Total War series was really up and coming, and you had even your turn-based stuff like Civilization. All excellent games were coming out then, and there's been a lot of changes in the gaming landscape in the last few years, which I'm going to break down as to why a whole lot of RTS games have disappeared, and we haven't seen really any since Halo Wars 2, and part of me thinks we won't see any after Halo Wars 2 for a very, very long time. So there's a few things to contribute to the decline of the RTS genre, and this can be anything from companies mishandling development teams, which is really, in my opinion, what happened with the Command & Conquer series. That series was fantastic. EA really took it to different directions that fans didn't want, and before they knew it, the entire series was dead, and we haven't seen a good Command & Conquer game come out in over 10 years now. You could contribute it to other things, such as the rise of different game genres that have taken that audience that would normally be dedicated to RTS games and go to other things. So I would say the biggest contribution to this are MOBAs. So Warcraft 3, I believe, was where Dota 1 started, Defense of the Ancients, and Dota 2 and games like League of Legends, Heroes of the Storm. These kinds of MOBAs are very similar to RTS games where you're controlling a character from almost like a top-down perspective of an RTS game, and there's a lot of strategy involved, but it takes things out such as base building and the whole economy. I wouldn't say the microcontrols of units and things, because you do that in MOBAs, but it's very, very stripped down from what an RTS game is. And I think that's where the majority of people who love RTS games have flocked to lately. And there's other things too of just how people are these days. Nowadays, people want to get into a match, play it for 5 or 10 minutes, and then get out and get back into another match. And some RTS games, especially in Halo Wars, or arguably any RTS game where a turtle situation can come out, some of these matches can last for hours on end, and I don't think people have the patience for it. I think a lot of people, once they jump into an RTS game for the first time, they're very intimidated by it, just because there's so many things to do, and if you're playing someone who knows the game pretty well, the skill set heavily comes into this sort of a thing, and everything relies on you. So if you take one misstep at the beginning of your build, you can kind of screw yourself over for the entire game. And I feel like if you're someone new to an RTS game that is joined after launch, you're going to have a very hard time adjusting to what everyone else is doing. And so I think that's why you don't see a whole lot of newcomers into the RTS genre in terms of players. So let's say I'm playing a game with like Ed or Pyman or whoever, and we're not the best at the game, but we know what we're doing, and so we get matched up with some people who are playing the game for the first time. We are just going to steamroll them because we just simply play the game better than they do, and it kind of goes against when I play against some of the best players in the world in Halo Wars. I'm going to get destroyed because they know things that I don't know. And so I think skill gap is a big part of it as well. A lot of people will start playing the game, they get destroyed, and they say, you know what, forget it, this just isn't for me. I think a lot of people may not understand how RTS games work. Maybe there's too many unit upgrades, there's too many different tech trees, there's too many factions and sorts, and it really gets intimidating. And people are like, well, this is just too much for me, just forget it. I want to go to my Fortnite where I know I just have to hit the A button and jump out of an airplane, and that's it. And so I think a lot of that has to do with that sorts of things, and also the genre of RTS games in whole has not changed a whole heck of a lot since really when it was created in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, if you take Age of Empires 1 and compare it to Halo Wars 2 today, that's a span of over 20 years, but the gameplay is very, very similar. I mean, nothing's really changed. You've seen other genres kind of evolve over time. I mean, FPS games back in the 90s weren't really that good, and now almost every game that's an FPS game is usually pretty good. You don't see too many bad FPS games anymore. The same thing can kind of go into effect with the way that we play online games now. We see a lot of these social live service type games, things like your Fortnites and your Rocket Leagues and your Minecrafts of the world, where it's very heavily influenced on playing with your friends and really being involved in a live service. And I think it's a good thing that the RTS genre hasn't gone this direction, because I think a lot of the old-time fans of this series enjoy its classic gameplay and mechanics and everything, and that it hasn't changed that much. So it's very easy for someone who's interested and invested in RTS games to go from one to another. There are some RTS games that have, you know, evolved and changed and made some really good strides to the genre. The one that comes to mind in my mind is Company of Heroes and Dawn of War 2. Both of those games really take RTS to a different level, where it really simplifies your economy and simplifies your base building and things of that sort, to where it is still a traditional RTS game, but there's a lot more to do and it's easier for new players to get involved. So what's the future look like for RTS games? And really, outside of StarCraft 2, which is still massive, I don't really see the RTS genre really picking up anytime soon, and I really hope that I'm wrong, because I love RTS games. Age of Empires was one of the first games I ever played, and it was great to see that that development team of Ensemble Studios go on later to create Halo Wars. And so I hope that the genre comes back. I hope that we see some indie studio really create an awesome RTS game that we haven't seen before. Something that really is similar to Halo Wars 2 in how it kind of catches a community and keeps people engaged and everything. And hopefully that comes to console, because I do think in this day and age, you can pull off a good RTS on console. Just look at Halo Wars 2. A lot of people who play Halo Wars 2, from what I know personally, play on Xbox instead of PC, or if they do play on PC, they do play with a controller, just because the controls have been so streamlined that it's super easy for them just to pick up a gamepad and get going. But unfortunately, I think that the RTS genre is not dead, but it is much of a fraction of what it used to be from 10-15 years ago, and I think it's going to remain in this niche. We're still seeing new big RTS games in development. The only one that really comes to mind is Age of Empires 4, and those are made by the guys, they're being created by the guys that make Company of Heroes and Dawn of War 2, so I expect that that game's going to have similar mechanics to those types of games. Could be wrong, but that's not necessarily a bad thing at all. And it's exciting, and hopefully this kind of reignites gamers' passion for the RTS genre, and maybe we'll see some results hopefully soon. Anyway, please post your thoughts in the comments down below. Love to hear what you have to say on it, about the RTS genre as a whole. Do you play other games besides Halo Wars in the RTS genre? If so, what are they? Love to hear your thoughts. And hopefully we'll see some more news in this genre soon. Thanks for watching. I'm Major from Team Respawn, and I'll see you next time.